Hello friends, I woke up this morning to our contract from Yotel, or at least the latest version of it, and I want to make sure that you all feel included and acknowledging of what this all is. I will start by saying it is not the contract that we wanted, it never is, but I believe that we have come to the point of diminishing returns at this point. They're only going to do and give us what they are going to do and give us. However, level setting everything, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that the very first thing when I've told people that we were going to the Fringe that they've asked about is housing, and it is incredibly expensive. I know people who are writing checks for $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to have housing for their cast and crew at this experience. Box offices are usually, like when you do a show at one of these theaters, they can take anywhere from 30 to 40 to 50% of that box office. And so all things being equal, we are receiving value here. The greatest benefits is we do not have to share our venue with anybody else, and we are not having to travel in and out of our venue every single day. We will literally wake up and be at our theater. If we did not want to leave the venue, we could basically stay there. And I imagine that that is going to become incredibly crucial to our long-term sustainability in staying there. So quickly level setting just to stay grateful and acknowledging of what we are receiving from this deal. It has been hard won, and thank you for your patience and your own sacrifices in us being able to even take this very mediocre deal so that we can do a very cool thing. We're starting off with the draft update to the most recent date, and then putting in, I guess, there just that what this is, what is this document, and the parties, introducing Jigsaw Ensemble. I have taken the moment to add in here the kind of assertion that Jigsaw has been the copyright holder of all the content. That is both technical implementations and content, that is creative content. I'm basically asserting that right that you all have been patient and understanding of me holding this whole time, that basically that Jigsaw can use that as a bully stick to make sure that nobody takes anybody's content. So I'm asserting that right here to make sure everybody's on the page about where that content came from and who owns what. Then the Yotel section is basically they have shrunk this down massively, just basically saying who this venue is. They've also kind of walked back some of the seating arrangement. We'll get into that in a moment, but something to flag. And they've left some of these sections incomplete, but I cannot get them to complete documents, and so this is where we are. Commencement, it will basically begin as soon as we have both signed this document. Then it outlines the structure of the collaboration. I'm introducing Jigsaw, being the artist in residence, and the creative team, basically throughout this document being considered the artist. So we are all considered the artist, and that constitutes Jigsaw's responsibilities and then each of our individual responsibilities. So Jigsaw's team is myself, lead performer and producer, Michael Moran, technical director, Maurice Soke, junior musical director, together the creative team. This is the original MPC team, especially as it has to do with the underlying copyright of MPC. Then Jigsaw is supported by PCM Creative, represented by Karen Lyon, who is serving as our 2024 UK Regional Company Manager and our partner liaison. We will refer to Karen as our Regional Company Manager. Jigsaw will be supported by up to one additional on-site Edinburgh Fringe producer, as of yet unidentified, but we have talked about people like Clem, who wanted to come in for a week, basically as an extra set of helping hands, bring her expertise and her knowledge, but also get to check out the Fringe. Karen's partner is a 3D generalist and modeler who might want to come visit for a couple days. So we can use that position fluidly to make sure that we are allowed to entertain occasional guests or friends or family. Jigsaw is supported by Zoo Venues as the ticketing and marketing. Jigsaw will be supported by Mobius, serving as our publicity company. Jigsaw will be supported by volunteers and subcontractors in adherence to Section 5.4 regarding subcontractors, basically just meaning that we are going to be responsible for anybody we bring in. And we have begun conversations, or I have begun conversations with local university professors about their students who are looking to pick up extra work during the summer holiday and during the Fringe season. So we might be able to incorporate a couple extra helping hands. My caveat on that is that I do not just want a bunch of kind of PAs or general gophers. Like, that's never been fulfilling to me. So I would love for someone who is like in broadcasting, who wants to pretend that our entire live stream is their portfolio piece and take ownership of that, and use that moving forward to advance their career. Similarly, if there's a projection student or an audio student or a lighting student, I really want to identify somebody who this is going to be a real opportunity for them and not just some quick cash on the side. That is lovely, but in my perfect world, the dream of MPC can help foster the dreams of everybody involved. Then Yotel is describing their team structure, which is Margaret Auld, who is the general manager of the hotel. She is lovely, but she is kind of our overall on-site person. Then Hannah McAlevey is going to be our events coordinator. Hannah's going to be our best friend. She is in charge of everything that happens inside of the space. She will be there every single night that we're doing the show. Any concerns or issues that we have, Hannah is kind of our liaison of the space and of the event. Steve Valentine is technically the technical director. He has an assistant named James who is much more responsive. And they have, in this document, worked very hard to make sure that we are given no technical support and assistance. So I do not think that we will be talking very much to Steve. Yotel is supported by their headquarters and marketing. Georgina is our main contact there. So any press, any marketing, any images, language, permissions, all that kind of stuff is going to go through Georgina. And we, based off of my experience thus far, are going to send her things for approval. We are not going to hear back from her. And then we are going to kind of be told at the last minute when they need something from us. So we will just all have to practice some patience regarding what I've identified so far as being their PR mechanism and strategy. Hannah will be our event host and point of contact. Now our obligations. I'm going to just really go over kind of the key briefest amount of this because I don't want to read this whole document to everybody because I know that that is boring. But we are going to accept and use the venue and equipment in line with the agreement, manufacturer manuals, and Yotel's recommendations. They are going to give us a handover protocol that they have not yet filled out, and then the function sheet, which will be kind of our daily kind of event sheet for needs. We're going to try to gear that towards more of a traditional equity rehearsal report so that there's a section on that document every morning when we meet for us to identify problems, concerns, questions for different departments. And then those departments will know, I look at the bottom right-hand corner because that's where my notes always are. It's blank this morning, so there's nothing for me to worry about. Or at the meeting, someone will say, hey, can you put in Maurice's box that we need to recheck that music cue or whatever it is. We're going to oversee all creative and technical decisions for the development, pre-production, and performances of the project. We're going to pay all expenses related to compensation for the creative team and producers. We're going to pay expenses related to the equipment rentals agreed upon in writing. So don't let anybody tell you that we have to use extra equipment or you know what you should do. We are taking care of ourselves and we are not interested in any sort of additional feedback or invoicing. Pay all expenses related to compensation for any additional team members we bring in. We're going to provide commitments defined below. We're going to assure that we conduct ourselves respectfully and professionally at the venue provided by hotel. And we're going to maintain all exclusive rights and license and be responsible for the distribution of all the content we put out. Basically, we're not going to put any third-party content that we have not gotten an agreement for. So that's like pre-show music or the assets in the world or graphics that we're putting on the screen. We need to make sure that everything is fair use or that we own it outright. Or that we have a written agreement in hand that says we are allowed to use it the way we are using it. And we will procure those licenses if we don't have them. We'll comply with all applicable laws and regulations, standards and operations, rules and policies of the venue, guest room, common spaces, and facilities, as well as local laws and guidelines. We will use the equipment solely for the purpose of performing the scheduled project events and in accordance with the intended use and guidelines provided by Yotel. And we will be solely responsible for the project and hold Yotel harmless against anything that they ever do at any time. Hooray, hooray. And then Yotel is agreeing to us the use of the venue, the access to the venue, the accommodation by way of 2 hotel rooms. This is newly defined. First room with 1 double and 2 single beds, and second room with 1 double and 1 single bed from the 30th of July through the 27th of August, inclusive for artist use for up to 5 persons. Every time that I have asked about this or tried to get clarity on this, it has diminished, so I don't think we can ask anymore because I don't want it to shrink any more than it already has. But I'm guessing they're giving us the less nice rooms, and I'm guessing that They are not going to honor their verbal commitment to give us first right of priority if there's any vacancy. But maybe as we get to know Margaret and Hannah, that can judge. Provide a complimentary breakfast for up to 5 artist authorized persons staying at the hotel during the time of their stay. That was a fight, but we have breakfast. Hooray. Provide brand media assets, provide commitments as defined below, and market the project as agreed with the artist. We do have the right to get additional sponsors, so if you know anybody or anybody wants to sponsor the show, we can do that, and it has nothing to do with the hotel. Subcontracting, we have the ability to bring in subcontractors to fulfill certain obligations, so long as we get their approval in writing. Routine cooperation, we will communicate and cooperate, and the function sheet will act as our real guide in understanding what the day-to-day operations and needs are. Then we have the kind of financial consideration of that we can go seek kind of additional matching investment or compensation, and that they have nothing to do with that. And then how we are going to basically compensate them. So we're responsible for our rentals, our talent, our production crew fees, our per diems, our visas, our production insurance, approved expenses, and everything else for the entirety of the run. We're going to engage 5 foreign team members to perform and promote 24 instances of the project and secondary promotional media. We're going to give them credit and logo placement equal to Jigsaw on all graphics and also on the step and repeat. Artist commits to create and post social media content. It's 10 tweets, 10 Instagram posts, 10 Facebook posts. We have to vet it by them and go through this approval process first. They have yet to respond to those approval processes on 2 other pieces of content I'm already sent. So we'll see how that goes. We're going to provide a project trailer, which we've already done, and they haven't actually approved. We're going to commit up to 10 complimentary tickets that used to say 20, interesting, for Yotel's representatives to attend the project. And we're going to comply with their content requirements. I have asked them to clarify this. They have not. This is incorrect information, but this is what we are signing. Appropriately tag @Yotel, which is not their hashtag, their handle on Twitter, but so be it. So as long as we @Yotel and tag them, we use the hashtag Yotel, all capitals. We mention Yotel Edinburgh, and our posts and stories must include approved shots, videos of Edinburgh and the venue. So the way to kind of get around this is, my hope is that our first couple days there, we're going to shoot a bunch of kind of generic content, entering the hotel room, being around the hotel, all that nonsense. That is going to go into a library or a Dropbox that will go off for approval. Once it is approved, we can recycle the heck out of it. So every time that you want to say I'm at Yotel, you can show the same image or the same video of Yotel. Every time that you're like, oh, my room or whatever, you can show the same footage or angle of that has been approved. The goal being that we are going to get those approvals and then not have to worry about approvals after that. And then we bear responsibility for all visitors and guests associated with the project, which is weird, but is what it is. Then the commitments of Yotel, 24 performances, private admin Wi-Fi, the hotel rooms, commit to featuring and promoting the project on associated media, and the PR support that they're giving us, a press release, annotated and linking all published promotional media to the URL for on-demand viewing, so basically trying to send everything to our digital pass and digital tickets. And then they're really spelling out that they have no liability, and I had to fight to get this language, that basically damage caused by a Yotel employee as a result of breach to their duty, or kind of direct damages caused by them intentionally, will then result in misconduct. So originally it said that we were just completely unprotected, but now at least if a Yotel employee does something to our equipment, we are protected. We are giving them a revenue share of 10% of gross receipts received by Jigsaw from ticket sales to be remitted during the agreement term. Gross receipts received shall be defined as any actual monies received by Jigsaw from third-party ticketing services, less any ticketing services fees, taxes, withholdings, or chargebacks during the dates. So they are basically getting a 10% of any money that reaches the Jigsaw ensemble. But at least we're not going to pay 10% off the top before Zoo or Fringe or Decast or anybody else takes their money. They added in that the above revenue shall exclude discounted project tickets sold as part of the hotel package. I don't know that they know that that is still in there, but I'm not going to tell them that. Upon receipt of reporting and transfer of funds by a third-party ticketing service, I shall release a revenue sharing statement and the funds within 7 days. So this will be true with everybody else involved, but basically as money comes in, as it actually reaches my bank account, which I'm told will take a very long time, I will then generate a report and I will disperse payments within 7 days of receiving that. So that will be true for everybody. And then I made them outline how they will receive money. My mouse has died. Hooray. That's why we have two. Meetings and reporting, we're going to be in constant communication, and I've made them outline the approval process that basically we have to email what we want approved for social media content no later than 24 hours following, and they have to respond to us no later than 24 hours following the receipt of the request. And that goes to Georgina and to Margaret. So far, we have not received response within 24 hours, but here we are. The rest of this document, and I don't mean to skim through it very, very fast, but is just standard legal nonsense. So we do not need to go through all of that. The things to keep in mind are term and termination, just that basically when they're handing it over, when we hand it back, and the handover protocol, acknowledging that again. And basically we're supposed to try to sort things out before we just terminate, but that's the goal. This whole contract and our whole relationship officially ends September 1st. So technically, we would have no obligations to them after September 1st. In good faith, I will, of course, pay them what they are owed when I get that money in October and November. But technically, this document says I do not have to, for what it's worth. Force majeure is a big, scary thing that people talk about all the time in these contracts. I've never been able to get around it in Hollywood. It's basically an act of God. Like something crazy happens, there's a riot or a tornado in Edinburgh. It's nobody's fault that this whole thing has been derailed by an act of God. And so we all agree that we're not going to sue each other, basically. But that is kind of the biggest, scarier thing. I have told them about intellectual property infringement, and we have the same with non-exclusive license. And you should know what our agreement is when it comes to your intellectual property. I have told them that anything that we post and go through the approval process and tag them in for social media and for their website, they basically get to keep forever, right? So if I make a vlog or if I make a video of us or if I release a clip and I go through that process, it is theirs. Anything else, they do not have the right to. And they can only ever use it in the context of which it was posted. So for example, I post a really cool image of me in the ImagineX on social media. Go through the approval process, tag them. They of course can use it on social media, but then they want to print that out or they want to put it in their deck for their events, or it ends up on the ImagineX website for them talking about, come to your event here. For advertising. That is not the intended use, and that will trigger our right to a takedown notice. So know that any content you are creating, that you tag them in, that you seek the approval process in, the context in which you share that content, like where that content goes, where you put that content, they have the right to keep using it there. But if you don't put it somewhere that you don't want them to keep having it, they cannot have it. So that is our arrangement. That is the deal. That's how that goes. Final thing is the 10.8 non-disparagement clause. We will in no way say anything negative about Yotel at any point in time. And that includes some of the snarky things I've said in this video. But during the term of this agreement and thereafter, both parties agree not to engage in any conduct or make any statements, whether written or oral, that disparage, criticize, or defame the other party, its employees, products, services, or reputation. This includes, but is not limited to, public statements, social media posts, reviews, and comments made to third parties. Both parties agree that any disputes or disagreements should be handled privately and in good faith, without resorting to public criticism or defamation. Any breach of this clause shall constitute material breach of agreement, entitling the non-breaching party to seek appropriate legal remedies. So, just know that, like any other artistic client that you've dealt with, of which I won't name a few that we've all encountered, is it me? We're just not going to say anything negative. We're just not going to say anything negative. If we need to come up with like fun little words, Michael and I, for a long time, when we've found ourselves getting into kind of like pettiness over other people in the XR space, we've gone les petits or petty boys. So we could have our own little joke phrase for how we deal with like a crummy situation, but that is in no way defamatory or critical. It's just a fun inside joke for us. But just know that that is the only kind of like scary language, and I really think what that language is there for, if I may interpret, is we're not going to do that. Other influencers might, and I'm sure they've worked with them. This is not a very nice hotel. I want to be very clear about this. It is a hotel, but it is not in alignment with its price point. And so I think that their number one concern is, whether intentionally or unintentionally, we are going to reveal how kind of hostile plus this whole thing is. And look, we've all lived in weird hotels and stayed at weird hotels, and like, I don't think any of us are going to be thrown by that, but like, they are presenting an image of luxury that they actually cannot maintain or live up to. And we may unintentionally, through just well-intentioned social media content, reveal rough edges. And so I think the biggest concern for them, just so that you can put it in the back of your brain, is that they want to make sure that we don't accidentally share something that they don't want shared. And that's what I think 90% of these frustrations have been about. So just know that as you're showing things or as you're sharing things, when it comes to things that their product is in, we may just be a little more guarded and careful. So like what I imagine us doing is, when we first get there, the very first day, when we load into our rooms, we will document that process of coming into a brand new, clean, polished, perfect room and taking nice video footage of that, so that when we mess it up and we live there for a month and it looks like we lived there for a month, they don't see that as critical or negative imagery, or making them look, crummy or something like that. That we are showing the room in the best possible light. And the same with like the bar and other things. We will just be very cognizant of the fact that what for us would be very fun, silly photos. Like, how many times has Maurice like made a funny face of like catching me in the background of something? But, somebody else could interpret that as us like making fun of the bar or something like that. So us just being cognizant that like, that's this nonsense, and we're just going to embrace that nonsense, and that is what this is going to be. But please, let's make all that content at Edinburgh Castle or Arthur's Seat, or when we go see other shows. But just know that we are client-facing pretty much the entire time we're there, and that we are going to be generating a lot of media, and that we just need to make sure that all that media is approved and that it is given to them in the intent that we want them to be able to have it forever, and to not give them content we do not want them to have outside of that context. That's the agreement. They then reference a secondary kind of handover sheet, but that sheet is incomplete. So what I'm going to do is just acknowledge when I signed this document today, I'm going to write in that all parties acknowledge that the addendum is incomplete and shall be completed at a later date, and executed or initialed and dated separately at that time. And that way I'm only agreeing to these 20 pages and not to other stuff that still needs work. Like, for example, Karen's name isn't on the group of people who are allowed access to the server room. So it's all kind of nuanced like that. Anyway, this message is long. I apologize, but I wanted you to feel like you had a full understanding of what it is we're agreeing to, full context of where the like scary corporate things are, and then really what probably is underneath them, so that we don't need to worry about it and we can just kind of plan for how we're going to navigate this together. And thank you so much for being a part of this crazy, crazy adventure. And I think that heads down, getting through it, I think a weekend they're going to realize that we're just great people, and that we're fun to we're doing a good show, and that we're not going to make anybody look bad, and things will relax. I think we're going to have a great run. It's just going to be getting there is going to be tough, and getting up and running is going to be tough. We're going to have weird bad days, and figuring out how to like build in space and boundaries with each other is important. But I think on the other side of this, I do not think that anyone is ever going to believe that we got away with this. I think that ultimately, as a fringe artist, fringe is very tough on artists and is not a good deal for the artists. And this is a mediocre deal as well, but it's still a pretty good mediocre deal. So I think that we're in a really good position to have a good fringe based off of this. And now we can really focus on the content side to making sure that we each get the experience we deserve and that we want, so that we can roll this into our portfolios moving forward and see what is on the other side of this. So appreciate you all so much. Thank you all so much. And away we go.